Generally, we think of pain as a bad thing, but I want to offer two instances where pain can actually be utilized and used for your own benefit. The first instance is in your normal life, your emotional life. About 3 or 4 years ago, there was an ending to a relationship that I had been in, and it was not fun. There was pain involved. I realized, though, that what I was feeling was not necessarily about the person with whom I had had the relationship, but there was a return of a particular feeling that I did not like, and I associated it with negative feelings, because it's a pain that I hated to feel, a feeling I hated to feel, and because it was so personalized. And I was getting anxious about feeling that, and so I was getting anxiety about the anxiety that I was feeling about feeling the pain. And I was going through those same sleepless nights. I would wake up, I'd start thinking, and the anxiety was growing. And I was on vacation about 3 months later, and I was still feeling these things I didn't want to feel. And I stopped into a Barnes & Noble and I picked up a book. Now, I have already studied Buddhist psychology quite a bit, but so I understood where my pain was coming from. But what I forgot was, just because you know where the pain is coming from, it doesn't mean you're not going to feel pain. You're human, you're going to feel pain. And that's what I kind of had forgotten. So I kept wondering, why am I feeling this? And I was getting anxiety about feeling what I didn't want to feel. And I picked up this book. It's called When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. And I opened to a chapter 3, and it's called This Very Moment is the Perfect Teacher. And she writes, generally speaking, we regard discomfort in any form as bad news. Feelings like disappointment, embarrassment, irritation, resentment, anger, jealousy, fear. And she's saying that instead of bad news, these are actually very clear moments that teach us where it is that we're holding back, if you recognize them as such. I was not recognizing that pain and discomfort as a teacher. I just knew I didn't want to feel it, and I was trying to do anything I could to distract myself from that feeling, and I was failing miserably at it. And then she wrote, those events and people in our lives who trigger our unresolved issues could be regarded as good news. Each day we're given many opportunities to open up or shut down. I was shutting down. I certainly was not opening up. And she also says, most of us do not take these situations as teachings. We automatically hate them. We run like crazy. We use all kinds of ways to escape. All addictions stem from this moment when we meet our edge and we just can't stand it. And I took her advice. I learned to sit with that feeling, what I didn't want to feel. And I did a particular meditation where you actually call up those difficult feelings. And instead of judging them or trying to change your thoughts, you just sit with them and you observe how your body feels. And the event that I was meditating on, it came up. It was uncomfortable, but very quickly it passed, and a event from 20 years ago came up in its place, and it was strong and it was vivid, and my body reacted strongly to that, and I felt that same tension, the nausea. I felt like constriction in my chest, and that's the feeling I do not like to feel, and I know what it's associated with. And instead of running from it, I just sat there with curiosity, as the instruction says. Be curious about what your body is feeling, how your body is registering all these feelings and these sensations from something, just from a memory, from something that happened, pretty much 22 years ago now. And so I wrote down afterwards what had occurred. So after about a minute and a half, I'm not sure how long it was, it felt like a long time, but it could have been a minute, those discomfort, the feelings of discomfort and those sensations that I did not like, they went away. And I was left with a lightness in my head. My feet felt heavy on the floor. I felt like I was being pulled apart, like I was being pulled up like everything in my body was expanding. I was sitting more straight than I had ever felt before. And then I had images of explosions, fireworks, sparkles. And my eyes were closed and you had all these visions. I also felt chills all over my body, goosebumps and explosive waves and tingling. It was a little weird. It was a little nerve-wracking because I had never felt these sensations before. And again, this is not something, I'm not trying to brag about this experience. This is just what happened. And then after that, calmness returned and I felt very, very light. So something happened. Can I explain it? No, I don't know. You could say it was letting go of that pain. But the only reason I finally let go of it was because I actually let myself feel it. And so with that in mind, postural restoration, the stuff I do with people, we often think of pain as being a bad thing. I had another experience recently where I was reading about, it was cranial sacral biodynamics by Franklin Sills, and he's talking about palpating inside someone's mouth. And when you palpate inside someone's mouth, which I don't do because I'm not licensed to do such a thing, but he says you have to be very careful about it because people hold a lot of memory and in their jaws. I think a lot of people actually know that because you tense and you clench when you're aggravated or when there's tension in your body. And the mouth is highly innervated. Your teeth are highly, there's a lot of nerves, sensory nerves inside your mouth surrounding your teeth. And people hold a lot of memories there. It could be of life memories. People have also had traumatic dental work. So as I'm reading this chapter, I start to feel tension in my teeth, in my upper molars. And now that I've trained myself to actually listen to my body instead of disregarding my body, I closed my eyes and I just started to breathe. And I had a flashback to, must have been 6th grade, 7th grade when I had braces. And the orthodontist had his rather hairy arm inside my mouth and he had pliers and he was twisting the pliers, I guess twisting the brackets or the wires. And that was the tension I was feeling in my teeth. And what was very odd was that I started to feel like I was suffocating because the guy's arm is in my mouth and my breathing is very belabored. I'm having a very difficult time exhaling. It was very halting. This was actually just as strong as the other memory that I had just talked about. And again, after about a minute, and this was anxiety producing, I actually had to ground myself by putting my foot on the floor just to bring myself back home, that I'm not actually in the orthodontist chair, but I was just reliving that moment. And after about a minute and a half, my body started to relax and everything went back to normal. But the fascinating thing was that my mouth has changed. There was some sort of expansion on the right side. And I can tell because my teeth touch differently and my palate, my hard palate on the right side is descended compared to what it was before. And this is normal in people who've had what they call torsions of a cranium, which is a twisting motion, which I am. As a postural restoration client, I know that I'm a right torsion person, so I had twisting my cranium because of a neck that wasn't moving, most likely. But I also know that something changes because I'm no longer landing on my callus on the left side of my left foot. I don't have it on the right side, it's only on my left side. And I knew previously when I was off, because I'll feel that callus too much. What I knew before was that what I would have to do to get myself off the callus was rib rotation movements. And now, since that experience, since the expansion, I don't even have to do the rib rotation movements. But I'm no longer landing on that callus anymore. I no longer have to get myself off that callus. And so my mom, the other day, we were talking about my mom with this, and she said, well, why don't you just get the callus removed? And I don't want to, because that callus tells me the pain, and that's a painful callus. That callus tells me when I'm off, when my body's not moving properly. And so now that I'm off it, I'm not going to remove it because now I won't know anymore whether I'm off again. So in that way, I'm using pain as a reference point for my own life. And you can use pain, as long as you don't associate pain with just bad things, as long as you just accept it, as long as you don't label it and you don't attach to pain, that's where you you run into trouble. If you use it as a guide to your life, as a guide for telling you when something is wrong and you're not addressing something, if you listen to that pain, it can be that type of experience. And again, I'm not talking about pain coming from disease or acute injuries. I'm just talking about bodily pain in general. And those are two different ways that I've used pain in my life, and I still use it. I still listen to my body, emotionally, physically, and really it's the same thing. It's the same organism, they're the same system. So I highly encourage people to not only try to start a meditation practice, to understand what meditation does, but also really start to listen to your body, and that might take a lot of practice. That might take a lot of reading, studying, and you at some point will be able to use pain to your advantage rather than seeing it as something that you have to constantly get away from and try to feel better from. It might actually be telling you something that you really need to hear.